Okay, welcome back to part 2 of the video. On number 6, we're going to continue graphing our quadratic function that's written in vertex form. So I want you to do this one on your own, and you're going to do it by finding the vertex and the axis of symmetry, and then one other point and graphing it. Once you have it graphed, I want you to go back over and look how the A and the H and the K are affecting it and write how the graph is transformed from the parent function. So pause your video to do this and then check back for the solution. So I pulled out the vertex and the axis of symmetry from the equation, and then I just picked a point. And the reason I picked the point 4 was, well, I didn't have a real good reason, but I picked the point 4. And the main reason I picked it was because when I subtracted the 6, it would be a -2, and squared would take me back to the number 4. And I knew I was multiplying by a fraction. I was just trying to get a number that would be easy to work with. So when I graphed my axis of symmetry in my vertex, and then I graphed the one point I found, which was 4, 3, then I just used my symmetrical knowledge to know that if this point is 2 away from the axis of symmetry, another point had to be 2 the other direction. And then I sketched my graph. Then just taking it one step at a time, it reflected. It had a vertical shrink of a factor of 1/4. It shifted to the right 6 units and up 4 units. Now we're going to just practice graphing using a transformation, and it's got a little bit different nomenclature than you're used to seeing, so let's look at what is being used. So we've been given a graph function f, and then for function g, it has given us f of, and then for our x, they've given us x plus 2. All that is saying is our x is going to be all of this right here, the x of f, plus 2. So let's just go ahead and rewrite the whole thing. So we've got g of x, let's get a little more space. Okay, so we've got g of x equals, we've still got our a value, but instead of x, we're going to put the x from our f value of x plus 1, but then we're also going to say plus 2 squared minus 1. Okay, so now we've got our function g written. We need to do a little bit of combining like terms, so we'll combine these guys right here. So now we've got g of x equals 3 x plus 3 squared minus 1. So now you can take our new function g, now that we've got it written, and figure out the vertex, the axis of symmetry. You can pick another point and graph it. So I want you to do all of this with the video paused and then check back to verify your answer. Okay, so looking at our new function g, I went ahead and found that the vertex would be -3, -1, and then I picked a point -2, and my thinking was if I could get this down to a 1, it would make an easy point, so that's why I picked -2, and that gave me a point on the graph of -2, 2. So when I graphed my -2, 2, then I just used my axis of symmetry. It was 1 away from the axis, so I put 1 on the other side, and that gave me my graph. Now let's look at number 8. So number 8's a little different, but it's the same thing. We're converting, or we're transforming function f into function g. And what it's given us is function g is going to be the negative of function f. So what that's going to look like is my, let's draw a little line here, is my g of x equals the negative of my f of x. So 1/2 parentheses x minus 3 squared minus 5, close my parentheses. So if you think about what we've just done, we're now going to have to distribute this parenthesis, or this negative. So we're going to distribute it to this first term, and we're going to distribute it to the second term. So to do that, when I distribute it to the first term, it just makes my 1/2 on the outside a negative. Doesn't impact the inside of my parentheses. But then when I distribute it over here to my -5, negative times negative is going to make it a +5. So that is my new function named g. Okay, so now that you've got your new function named g, you can go ahead and graph it and find another point and graph it. Pause your video while you're doing this and then check back for the solution. Okay, so the point I picked this time was x equals 5, and the reason I picked 5, I was trying to get my number small inside the parentheses so I could take half of it, and that gave me the point 5, 3, which is 2 units away from my axis of symmetry. So then I just took my axis of symmetry and went 2 units the other direction to get my third point so I could draw my graph. Okay, so now let's look at a couple of more to practice on. So what they want us to do is to write a quadratic function when they've given us the vertex and they've given us a point. So let's think about what they've really given us here. They've given us our h, they've given us our k, they've also given us an x and a y. So from our vertex form, the only thing that we don't have, that we don't know, is the a value. So let's just write really quickly, let's write our vertex form up here so that you've got it. Okay, so we've got y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. So all we have to do is we have to fill in our h and our k and our x value and our y value, and then just solve it for a. So I want you to do that now by filling in, actually we'll fill this one in together and then I'll let you solve it. So our h value is 3, that's going to go here. Let's do that in blue. Our h value is 3, our k value is 5, our x value is 6, and our y value is 0. Okay, so now that you've got this equation, I want you to pause your video and solve it for a and write our quadratic function in vertex form using the a that you just found. Once you've done that, start the video up and check for the solution. Okay, so as you solve down for a, you came out to a being -5/9, and then just plugged the a value into our vertex form, went back to our plain old x and y, and here's our answer. So we're going to do the same thing again on number 10. I want you to work all the way through it. Pause your video while you do the work, and then after you've gotten it written in vertex form, start the video up for the final answer. The biggest thing to be careful on for this one was when you're substituting in negatives. And I say it a lot to use parentheses, but critical that you use parentheses when you are working with negatives. So when I plugged in my -5, it was minus negative, so that became +5. And here I was adding -1, so plus negative keeps it at -1. So here's my final answer, y equals 1/3, parentheses x plus 5 squared minus 1.